there. I just unmuted the mics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no,
Hello.
you just gotta speak into it, that's all.
Hello, this is 7 o'clock. It's East Lyme Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, June 11th. Looks like we have the need for replace one of our commissioners with an alternate. Sam was the alternate last time. I think Tim and Sandy were the alternates the last time before. So I guess we can do it in alphabetical order. Sandy, you can, is that okay? Now we can do roll call from right to left.
Cindy Collins?
Sandy Janek.
Kirk Scott.
Rich Gordon.
Brian Bomback.
Nick Menapace.
Thank you. Now time for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next, call for any additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions? Okay. Now is the time to call for public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters, items, referrals, or applications subject to decision by the commission. A public hearing or in litigation may not be discussed. During delegations, the members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comments. Is any public delegation? Anybody want to speak? Okay, thank you. Next are reports. I don't think we have any communications. Do we have any updates from somebody who's attended in the last couple of zoning meetings?
I
Thanks.
just have it pulled up here. Oh, unless someone was at the, I was just the one this.
Yes, well, any time since the last
so I
meeting.
didn't know if someone else had the previous. What there?
Yeah.
Wait, I think they canceled that one, right? So
I think there might have been two, but I don't know if
Yeah,
they,
so-
they might have canceled one.
I think there's only been the one since our last. So I'm just pulling it up here if you don't mind. Sorry. Oh, here we go. All right, I will say that the meeting, public delegation was very contentious. We had the talk about the Boston Post Road project reapplication. There was seemingly a lot of comments about the, from the engineer, about flood prevention and rainfall. We did have two members who were asked to recuse themselves. One did and one did not, but they're still kind of in the, I don't know what they used the word differently. I didn't use it in my notes. Still kind of in the, I guess, the planning stages of this. It's seems a bit of a process. The meeting went very long, so yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I really need to add, but it was quite a lot of questions about this project, and I'm trying to remember if there was another one after that, because it did, like I said, I had to go home and watch the rest on the computer because it was till like after 11, but
Wow.
yeah. All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have the ex officio, well, Don McKenzie is not here, but Ann Cicciarello from the Board of Selectmen is in her place. If she has any report.
Hi, Ann Chicello from the Board of Selectmen, just here tonight in place of Don McKenzie. So I'm not sure, I'll just bring up issues that I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but May 23rd was the budget referendum, and it did pass, and the tax bill should be mailed out soon. June 5th, we had a Board of Selectmen meeting. Most relevant thing was we had the Yale Charette study presented to the Board of Selectmen. And this was first done in 1997, at which point in the first study they had presented changes that revitalized Niantic and Main Street. So this is kind of like the second time that they're presenting. So they studied Niantic and Main Street and that whole downtown area and presented it to the Board of Selectmen. Their first priority, they present many issues, and then, obviously, we can't afford to do everything, but, we'll go through it and see what's most important. We did ask, what's their top priority? And the top priority, they said, was the old police station, what to do with it, and they did, present different ideas. The second one, which I thought was really important, was parking, because a lot of people like to go downtown, but there isn't parking, and also that a lot of people are trying to either leave the Niantic Bay Playhouse or go over to the beach, and the cars don't see people, and so there's an issue with the traffic and the pedestrians also. So those were the two big issues that kind of rang true for me. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
Just because this is my understanding, this was in the POCD, and I missed it. But then when I've asked about this, I've been told that it's something that Parks and Rec is under. But I will say I contacted Parks and, I should say, this is my understanding that this is part of the POCD was for planning for more bike and walkability for the town in the downtown area. Mm-hmm. And I've been consistently told, that's something that Parks and Rec has planned about putting in bike racks and things like that, which apparently they had never heard about because I asked them and they're like, we don't have any plans for that. And I was, I guess, just a little surprised for the commission they had that there didn't seem to be anything in there about adding bike racks or things like that, really just trying to offer up these alternates to driving, because I know if it's not in that one, it's certainly in the spirit of the POCD that that seems like something that we should have. And like I said, when I brought it up to zoning, they said, that's Parks and Rec's department.
And you asked Parks and Rec
Yeah.
about it
Yeah, and they said they have no plan.
at a
Right.
meeting?
I asked them in an email
Oh,
at
okay.
hey, I've heard that there's a plan from Parks and Rec about this, and they said I'm not aware of any plan. So
Okay. Well, I can bring it up to the Board of Selectmen.
okay, I was just
Good luck.
curious because it didn't come up when your guys it didn't come up in what you were just in the Yale study for that one, and so I was just wondering if there had been something.
In the Yale study, they do want to make it much more walkable, more convenient for people.
Yeah.
Basically, what they were proposing is basically having a main area of parking. So you would go and park and then walk all around.
I guess that
So
was just my point, and is that I was just surprised that if this was part of it, because I did read in for this one that it never actually came up at all for any
Well,
specifics for this is all.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was 100 pages, so, I read the major parts
Yeah,
of it. I didn't
that's the
read
same
every
thing I did,
detail.
but,
So, I don't know if that's something that
Okay.
they're going to propose, but in the meantime, I can speak to the Board of Selectmen
Yeah.
and just kind of bring it up and see what they say about it, and, try to talk to the Park and Rec also. Because it
yeah.
does, I don't bike at this point,
Mhm.
but are there bike racks anywhere
No.
downtown?
Not that I'm aware of that are. Oh, sorry.
So if I can just interrupt, maybe,
Yeah.
I think we could, if we actually incorporate that into the POCD,
Yeah.
we do have a pedestrian bike plan as
Mhm.
part of our POCD,
Yeah.
so we can add that amenity into it. I think it really focuses on establishing bike lanes and having safe right-of-ways for
Okay.
traffic, bicycle, pedestrian,
Yeah.
vehicular. Maybe not so much the amenities that go with it, but I think if we put it in there, I'm sure Park and Rec would support it.
Okay. I like I said, I was.
Is it already, I'm sorry, is
I
it
don't
already
know. I
part of the
don't- I don't-
POCD?
I'd have to go back and look
I know.
specifically. It's a minor kind of amenity that I
Yeah.
don't remember specifically incorporating bike racks.
Okay. Ms. Heller here was just saying that she actually could address that. So
Okay.
Yeah,
would
we-
you guys be amenable to having her just speak about the bike racks?
She's actually on.
She's on the agenda. She's on the agenda under new business.
Yeah.
We can.
Complete street policy, so that she'll probably.
Do you want her to address it now or when she comes up?
I think it'll probably be fine under when we show this.
We can wait.
When you come up.
I mean, yeah, it'll listen. And I'm sorry, I had wanted to ask because I also went through the major parts and I didn't for what you were talking about. I just
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen anything, and I did see all the stuff about parking. So I apologize if I'm bringing this up. That just seemed like
No, I think it's
I just
good. No,
I've been
excellent.
walking around town. I feel bad because I see kids riding their bikes that are just leaving them on the sidewalk because there's nowhere to put them.
Yeah, and they're gonna get
And
stolen. Yeah.
that's well, I
yeah.
don't know, but like
I would also note that staff, the land use staff here would have to also needs to review that document.
Yeah.
We had very little input
Mhm.
directly, I believe.
I-
Mr. Hall
yeah.
was interviewed for a couple of hours, but just So as far as what that document contains, it's.
For the charrette study?
Yeah. And a personal note, it'd be really cool if we had a bike rack here at the town hall, because I just leave it behind, my bike behind behind that one, but that'd be nice.
Okay, great. Were there any other questions for me?
Thank you.
And hopefully Don will be here next month. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, do we have any reports from the planning director, Gary Gaishel?
I don't really have much above when we get down to the whole business regarding the archaeological requirements as well as section 4 assessment. That's all I have.
Thank you. I don't think we have anything from the subcommittees. I don't have any report as a chairperson. Next on the agenda is the approval of minutes. There's 2 minutes that we're going to address, because I think on the April 9th, 2024 meeting, there was an issue because Nick Menapace's name was at the end of the agenda, saying that he did a motion to finalize the meeting, but
I wasn't here, so yeah.
she wasn't here, so I think Sue is going to look at the old tape, or
Yeah, and correct that.
correct that?
Correct.
Do we need to do
We're
another,
back at this meeting, but she was unable to make it this evening, so we can just
Okay.
leave the April 9th minutes.
leave that to the next meeting?
All right.
That's fine. Next up, the minutes for the last month's meeting, May 14th. Any discussion?
I did check it before, but I'm double checking that, people voted on it or who were here, but.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. I can entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'm sorry, I was trying to just pull it up before we voted, but I'm having trouble getting it coming up right now. The March minutes or the May minutes?
Talking about the last month's minutes.
Yeah, it
May
just
minutes.
says March on the bottom, so I thought
They're in the
maybe.
packet. They're in the packet.
Oh, awesome, thank you.
May 14th.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make everyone wait. I was just looking at I don't know if it matters, but it says March 12th, 2024 Planning Commission Special Meeting Minutes at the bottom. It's just printed on the page. I don't think it's actually part of the minutes, really, but.
Yeah, it's a footer.
Yeah.
Might have been a carryover from the previous meeting.
Yeah, it looks like it's, I
Oh,
don't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's correctly labeled on the header for here, so I don't know if that matters. It's not really part of the minutes, like, it's just kind of the footer at the bottom of the page.
We'll just note to delete it.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? I can entertain a motion to approve the minutes for May 14th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from May 14th, 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes for May 14th?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye.
Okay. So it's, I guess, 501. Next, we can go on to public hearings, which there are none this month. Next on the agenda are subdivisions and re-subdivisions. There was an application from Andia and Palom Nicolai, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. A one-lot re-subdivision of approximately 1,931 acres of land zoned RU40, and a request for a waiver for section 423 of the East Lyme subdivision regulations on property located at Scott Road, East Lyme, Connecticut. Gary, did you want to address that? I know.
The address is 123 Scott Road.
Okay.
That was just assigned by the assessor. So at the time they made the application, I did not have an address. So we do now have an address of 123 Scott.
Okay, thank you. And since it's a re-subdivision, we're going to need to have a public hearing, so,
Yeah, I'm suggesting we open it on July 9th.
Okay.
That gives us the staff a month to review. It is one lot. We have looked at the property in a previous application about a year ago.
okay. Okay, so we'll have the public hearing next month in July, and I think that's all I can really discuss now. I don't think there are any zoning referrals. And I don't think there are any municipal referrals. Next, we have old business, and that's subdivision regulations, section 4, application submission proposal. Proposed text amendment to section 414 of the East Lyme subdivision regulations. I know Gary was in conversations with the attorney on that issue.
So I asked Attorney Marca to take a review of section 4-14. And he writes, responded back via email, and I'll just read this for the record here. As background, you've asked me to review the amendments of section 4-14 East Lyme subdivision regulations. As background, Planning Commission recently amended section 4-14 to remove the environmental review team provision in light of the decision in the Lepowski subdivision appeal. The Commission now proposes changes to section 4-14-3 regarding the environmental impact assessment, EIA. Before addressing the changes, it should be noted that as currently written, the opening section is somewhat problematic. It requires an applicant responsible for actions which, quote, may significantly impact the environment, end quote, to provide a detailed, quote, detailed written evaluation of its impact, end quote. To the Commission, however, the section does not define what constitutes significant impact, nor does it state who makes that determination, the applicant, the town planner, or the Commission itself. If the Commission wishes to keep the EIA section, these ambiguities should be addressed. The major changes are found in section 4-14-4 through section 4-14-6 and are summarized as follows. Number 1, section 4-14-4, the Commission shall refer to the EIA to the East Lyme Conservation Commission at least 35 days prior to the public hearing. Section 4-14-5, the Conservation Commission report shall report its findings. Conservation Commission report shall its findings, this is currently a little grammatical error here, a statement of the vote and other recommendations deemed relevant. Section 4-14-6, the failure of the Conservation Commission to provide a report shall be taken as favorable of such action. His comments are regarding number 1, if the public hearing referenced in section 4-14-4 refers to the hearing on the subdivision application, this should be specified. The Commission must decide, number 2, the Commission must decide whether the Conservation Commission report is mandatory, that the Commission must consider and abide by the report's findings, etc., or merely advisory, meaning that the Commission may, in its discretion, consider the report, but is not bound to follow it. Our advice is that it be advisory only, as this is consistent with the Conservation Commission's statutory authority. General Statute Section 7-131A, subsection B, states in general that a Conservation Commission, quote, may make recommendations to planning commissions, end quote, on proposed land use changes, emphasis added. This is also consistent with section 4-14-6 regarding the failure of the Conservation Commission to issue a report. 3, section 4-14-6 should be clarified to specify that the failure of the Conservation Commission to issue a report does not affect the pending subdivision application. Again, this is also consistent with the report being advisory only. Moreover, if the Commission requires a public hearing on a subdivision application, it is then bound by the timeline set forth in General Statute section 8-7G. If the conservation report is deemed mandatory but not provided in a timely manner, the Commission could risk going beyond the section 8-7D timelines, which in turn could risk inferred approval of a pending application. And number 4, finally, the Commission may want to consider whether an EIA is necessary in light of other information already required by section 4-2-3. According to that section, and by way of example only, an applicant is required to submit 1, a detailed natural and cultural resource plan, 2, archaeological survey, 3, soil scientist report, 4, biological survey, 5, pesticide report, and 6, an open space report. Given the scope of the Conservation Commission, much of that information may already be contained in the required reports above. If you have any other questions, please let me know. So I think those are fairly good points we should consider addressing, certainly as we move forward. With that, in regards to the archaeological report and survey, in light of the requirement that we require for subdivision, to have that survey conducted versus a zoning application or an 8-30G application for affordable housing, which wouldn't necessarily require that. That being said, the current statutes exist, the current circumstances have existed for over 3 decades. If an applicant's going to propose affordable housing, my opinion is they're going to propose affordable housing regardless of what the regulations state. My suggestion might be, rather than eliminate the section, is maybe modify the regs so that it says upon approval, it's a condition, it's a requirement. So it's required upon approval, which would, even if the archaeological survey came back and found significant archaeological resources, the landowner would just be required to inventory, catalog, excavate, and probably send them to a museum or something to be stored. And then beyond that, there'd be no further requirements, they could build out the site. So as a condition of approval, at least the report would get done, the evaluation would be performed versus eliminating the whole requirement altogether. And that's my suggestion on the archaeological. That being said, if we make and address these 4 items here that Attorney Zamarka, this suggestion be addressed with 4-14, we could hold simultaneous public hearings on both types of changes, on both the archaeological and section 4-14. That being said, there would be 2 separate applications. You would make 2 separate motions, because if one failed and the other didn't, you wouldn't want to, the whole thing would fail. Right. So,
Right.
but you can hold this one public hearing to discuss both applications. Just know if there was an appeal, you'd only be turning that one, kind of maybe a lengthy record, because it's a long public hearing.
Right. So right now, we're just going to discuss whether to send it to a public hearing and then not really voting to approve or make the changes to the text, to the subdivision, text amendment to the subdivision regulations.
Well, I think we have to agree on the language going forward.
Right.
Before we hold a public hearing. So I think in addressing Mark's stuff, we just have to kind of answer a few questions here and clarify in the language.
Okay. I think at the March meeting, we agreed to send the archaeological documents changes to a public hearing.
Correct.
But we didn't, we postponed discussing or deciding on the changes to 414, I'm sorry, 414.4 on the Conservation Commission, on the Conservation Commission report requirements until we got more information from you on the timelines and other issues.
So I think, I mean, obviously, I haven't made these changes yet that, to reflect, and address Mark's comments.
Mhm.
We can either do that on the fly now, I can do that, have them prepared for the next meeting. I think we were looking to maybe possibly hold a public hearing at the next meeting.
Yeah.
I can make changes and work with the town attorney on those so that he's satisfied with it, they address his concerns. So that we have consistency through the regulation. And then hopefully those will be adequate to move forward and we can hold a public hearing. But that document I have to file, as soon as we post the notice, I'm gonna have to file with the town clerk, the document. So we need, as long as the language is set by then, we should be in good shape.
Okay.
Meaning, it doesn't have to come back here for you to send it to a public hearing. So all I'm saying is if I can get the town attorney to agree that the changes that he and I make are sufficient, we can take that document. You'll just have to trust that, okay, you don't get to see it until the night of the public hearing.
Kirk.
Or a week out.
I would think it would be a good idea to actually see the document edited and presented to us before we head right into a meeting. That's just my opinion.
I would prefer that myself, so that at least we get an extra set of eyes on it one more time.
I mean, there's no rush to do this,
Correct.
right? I mean, there's no reason we have to do it right away. I think if we take a minute and make sure it's exactly what we want, I think it makes sense, but that's just my thought.
And that works well. I can also have staff, take a look at it as well before, it comes back here for the next month. So basically, we would just postpone moving forward, maybe move the public hearing and plan it in for July, I'm sorry, August.
To August.
Okay.
Get beyond the fiscal year, that makes a difference, but certainly just gives us more time to edit.
I have no problems if you want to make sure you have all our changes in order.
Gives me ample time to get things going.
Okay.
And can you forward, is that review that was Mark's Market Date, is that in the artifacts online?
I think it was an email that,
Was it?
yeah,
All right.
Gary sent last week.
Yeah, apologies.
And it's in the,
It's in the previous, it's in the record?
it's in the materials also.
All right.
So if you, it's on the June 11th, it's,
Thank you.
so you can get it there. Put that line on that.
You just add that in this afternoon or something, Gary?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you just add that?
That was added,
I di-
He just added that, yeah. It was,
I think, today.
it was the same attachment that was in the email from last week also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an email, wasn't it? Yes, okay, great. So that's all I have on that.
Okay. Was there any further discussion or any other comments?
That was the only comments I had from Mark, and I did briefly talk to him about the archaeological report requirements, and he said he'd be happy to assist wherever as necessary. So if the commission, I'd like to just take a stab at maybe just crafting some language that would suggest it's still required, but as a conditional requirement.
Right.
Type of a thing. So I'll have to work on that with maybe Mark. I think is kind of a procedurally what we've done historically in the last few applications is if the applicant hasn't performed the survey, they've asked to, hey, we'd like to wait, hold off, and could you make a condition? I don't know if we've done that specifically. I'd have to go back and look at the approvals. I think there may have been one. We conditioned it as an approval. But again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it would work well.
Right. So the attorney recommended we look into whether we consider the Conservation Commission report advisory as advisory, not,
Mandatory,
mandatory, right?
which I think is appropriate.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, this commission is the one who's making the decision
Correct.
on the environmental impact
Mhm.
in the subdivision.
Mr. Geisha, I just have a quick question. Forgive me, because I wasn't here when this was originally brought up in the meeting, and I guess I'm not sure if I'm understanding this then. So, this is a lot of information that's being able to try and clarify, as we said, that we're making the recommendation that this have an archaeological study. I just really don't want this to be something that we're having the public perceive this, that we are trying to eliminate this in any way or make it that people can simply get this around, because we have had like much need for archaeological surveys. There's like I still know people bring it up to me about when they were putting in the sewer line and we had uncoverings here. But do you think, I don't know, is this going to be perceived by the public that we are simply trying to make this easier for developers to come in and get around this?
I think eliminating the whole regulation as
Yeah,
whole, yes.
Yes.
But by modifying the language and still requiring it,
Yeah.
it still will be perceived as making the process easier potentially.
Okay.
It certainly would, I would think it does. There's no immediate financial burden as an applicant to do that. But there could be, right? It's going to be required only in the event that you're approved.
Okay. Yeah.
On the other hand, if, again, it's a cultural resource. So if we're valuing all cultural resources equally, in that context, it's required.
Yeah.
Why should it be eliminated? So I think those are questions that would be asked maybe during a public hearing. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Were there any other comments or questions? Okay, so I think we can go to the next section under new business. We have in our audience today Penny Heller, who's the chair of East Lyme Commission for the Conservation of Natural Resources. And I think she wanted to do a presentation on the proposed policy for complete streets. And Ms. Heller, do you want to speak?
This seems quite timely. I'd like to start with addressing Nick's question about the Parks and Recs, because that gives the history of where I'm coming from and where the Natural Resources Group is coming from. I've been working with Mike McDowell and other parts of Parks and Rec for about 2 years, trying to get a bike safety group together, which he did get together with the East Lyme Foundation. I always get their name right. One of their representatives, to try to get bike racks and also to mark out, we were in the midst of getting a grant to get markings on various streets to mark like a bike, where it's a safe place to bike. For instance, Black Point Road and things like that. But then COVID hit, and then when we regrouped, we started again with just the bike racks. We had a plan where we could get a grant to put one here, which I just talked to a couple of staff the other day, because I came on my bicycle and had to lock it, because I don't leave mine unlocked like you do, because I noticed. I found out that Mike is gone. So
Yeah.
I didn't even know. He didn't even tell me that he left. And I'm upset that Parks and Rec doesn't even acknowledge that at least one of their staff has been working on this issue ever since there was a traffic safety group. I came in and said, what about a bicycle safety group? And we had one, but Mike fell behind and he had some personal issues, so I was trying not to push him to get this done. But anyway, in all of that, and with the charrette just coming up, I said, I've been nibbling around the edges on this. Why don't we just go with a policy statement, and all it needs to be is a policy. It'd be nice if it was more than that, but I think that's undoable and not really necessary. That the Planning Commission doesn't wait for a charrette or something like this, but actually increases their connectivity of sidewalks, of a bigger picture of bike safety and bike lanes, which we have none other than one block down by the bridge, and looks at what the state has done, because the state has a whole bike safety plan, which includes East Lyme, by the way. But that means that the state TOT has to be involved, and of course they're ripping up the north end of the town now, and they say that they're going to, I've met with them as part of the commission, and they say they're going to have wide, what I'd call a breakdown lane, but it's not going to be marked as a bike lane. So that's an issue where maybe the Planning Commission could, obviously it's a state issue, it's a state road, but we would have a policy that said under those circumstances, can you mark it, or can you put more of a barrier, even if it's just something that is a different color of paint, so that it's a little safer for bicyclists to get through what is now going to be a multi-lane bridge, and it divides the town. We've been working, one of the things that I'd like to do as a bicyclist is join Niantic, where I live, to Flanders, where there's a lot of nice places to ride, and you have to run the gauntlet in order to do that. You have to be a very astute bicyclist in order to not get hurt. So that's why I wanted to start with a policy, and it would be a policy statement that, where applicable, we would abide by the state plan, and it is in the POCD, in the document that I hope all of you have seen. I made reference to, and it is a reference that where possible, we would bike markings and bike safety and pedestrian safety would be considered. So that's where this is coming from, and it's kind of been 2 years or 3 years, whenever. I mean, I was part of the charrette where they called in outside people, and among other people, there were about 30 of us there, and about 4 or 5 people said, we don't have a parking problem, we have a car problem. The parking is because the cars are everywhere. If we go ahead and put the parking elsewhere, then a lot of this car safety issue will at least ameliorate, if not go away. So after that, I'd just be here to answer questions. That's what I'm requesting, that the commission vote on accepting what's called a complete streets, which is a street that has a sidewalk, a bike lane, where it's reasonable to have one, and that the safety of all other kinds of transportation, including the handicapped, is considered. So I'll just stop there and answer any questions you might have.
I guess my first question is, so if you want the commission to adopt the policy, I guess my question is, I want to lean toward, like, the commission has in the sense that the plan of conservation development incorporates these or recommends these kind of elements. So I think the question is, do we need to make modifications to our subdivision regulation that ensure that we incorporate all of this?
That would, that would be, to me, another step.
Okay.
And I understand it's in the POCD. It's kind of buried, and there are some things that the state bike safety commission, whoever it is that put that together, put those pieces together in a policy statement that doesn't require regulation changes or anything, but just upfront, one place where you've got a statement that says the planning commission is going to do this, keep this in mind where applicable, and in keeping with what, I mean, the state, just for instance, the state biking plan says we should have a bike lane on 156 that goes over the bridge, goes all the way through town, down to the book barn, so you can actually walk from the book barn to the town, or
Can we get
bike
one that
if you
goes to
want.
Old Lyme too?
Old Lyme. It's priority 1. They put that as priority 1. It's called the shoreline route, and I'm reading this saying, really? It doesn't exist. It's on paper. So that's the state plan. So if we had a policy statement that said the town, where possible, where you don't have to, take down things, because I don't know how you get a bike lane over the bridge, but that's a state DOT issue. Where that's possible, we would encourage that. As a policy, we would encourage alternate transportation where it seems like it can be done, and keep that in mind when you're planning other things. As I say, it's just a policy statement.
Yeah, I'm just making sure if this commission adopts a policy, that it continues forward with any other commission, that it doesn't get background in the ether. You forgot, because it's not written down anywhere except in a set of minutes. It's filed in the clerk's office 10 years from now. So I'm just, if it's in like the regulations, but in the POCD, so I'm comfortable there. To start,
I'm looking for step 1.
So as a public relations, and I mean, I don't see any issue with it. I certainly we support it. We're trying to push these, the striped bike lanes and all that within our POCD already. So I'm happy with that. That makes sense to me. So if you want to adopt a policy here, you can pass a motion to do so.
Excuse me, I see Ms. Chikello has a question.
Quick question, are there grants, I thought you mentioned that, are there grants for any of this?
There can be. The East Lyme Foundation was one source. They said they look into it. I mean, bike racks are not, they don't have to be, they can be works of art, but quite expensive, or they can be very minimal. Through the Sustainable CT program, which the town has been certified twice now, it allows us to apply for what would be they match a crowdfunding situation. So you'd write a thing, they'd set it up under their crowdfunding, and then whatever funding we get, and I think they have a 6-month deadline, they would match that, and up to $15,000. So I mean, it's a nice piece of money. You could do bike racks, you could do painting things, what they call road art, that just reminds people that are driving 40 miles an hour on a 25-mile-an-hour road, maybe they should slow down.
I don't, but I just want to say this. I completely agree with you in everything that you're saying here, but I also just want to say in this one that I've kind of run into the thing that Mr. Gage talked about, that, like I said, I had messaged I had messaged Parks and Recs about this in the past. After zoning had referred me, said, "Oh, this is probably more of an issue for Parks and Rec." And as you said, it didn't go anywhere because it just faded into the background. Because that's just where I would like to be able to know, like, even in adopting this, we're not, as you said, we're not changing any of the subdivisions on here, but where is our step 2 on something like this? Because you're right, this area, and I've talked to so many people, something I've talked about is that people would really, they love the walkability of Niantic. They would like to have more of it. One of the most common things I've heard from people is how they hate the fact that the area here in West Main is so, we go from the very, pedestrian unfriendly or friendly area in downtown Niantic to an extremely unfriendly area, really, I was going to say like at the school, but really even before that. I've talked to people who said that they don't feel comfortable having their kids cross the road there. And I would say, as someone who uses the crosswalk, I can tell you that it's, I don't know if you guys have ever seen the thing of, the reflective vests and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, I kind of get where people are coming from. Although I did see one that said maybe you should just hold a brick and like threaten mildly threaten the drivers as you go by. But it's maybe a little extreme for that one.
Yeah, I
So,
think so.
yeah. Yeah, they
That's
just
a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't think that's one that'll get much traction. But the point being is just simply on here that I would like to know what we can truly do, because so far in everyone I've talked to, it just seems to be an issue that it's like, oh, that's nice, and doesn't go anywhere.
So I think as far as adopting a policy, as we approve new subdivisions, we can look at that as we're in charge of the road layout, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say, hey, you need to add this feature to the road, things to that nature. In terms of existing roads, I think the goal, at least in discussions that I've had, was that we can adopt a policy where we can get maybe the bike with the 2 chevrons, means we share the road with bikers.
Mm-hmm.
New London, in particular, I guess, was able to do this on a few of their streets. It seems to be
Groton did too,
fairly successful.
quite a bit. In fact, they've done much more than that.
Correct. So I think that's really like.
So is Waterford.
Step 2, we were hoping we could go down that road.
Okay.
I think it's more conversations with our public works department to get that done. And again, funding, there's paint, there's time, manual labor there involved. So we'll have to figure out how all that gets kind of executed. But I think it's, adopting a policy, we're wanting to go down. I don't know that there's any other written location. I think we could, as a commission, you could send correspondence to the Park and Rec Commission and say, please consider these aspects of our plan of development as it relates to bicycle transportation.
Yeah, and I don't mean to apparently make anyone on the commission think that I'm taking too long on this one, so I apologize. But I just want to know, because I know that part of this plan in here is in our POCD is building additional sidewalks. And I've been told that there are plans in place for us to add into that one, but obviously bikes are not really supposed to travel on the sidewalk exclusively. But
So I guess while we're on the sidewalk discussion as well, we are going to be adding a fair amount of sidewalk on East Patagonia. We were awarded a grant for
awesome.
that sidewalk, so it's coming to fruition and it'll be relatively quick. We're planning to give a presentation to the Board of Selectmen in July, August, actually. Yeah, second meeting, probably August. And then notifying the abutters that work is coming.
So can I ask, just because, when is that plan to go in there? Because I'm not sure if that quite meets my idea of pretty quick, but I know the wheels of government turn slowly, but
We'd like to get the shovel in the ground this year.
Okay.
And actually get moving on it.
Awesome.
For instance, if that's the case, then you could paint that road at the same time with the chevrons,
When they go
for
to
a
start the
bicycle,
road.
Yeah.
when they're digging the road up. I'm thrilled. I live on East Patagonia.
Oh, yeah.
I never thought I'd ever see a sidewalk.
And I can tell you this, someone who's traveled, I find it, someone who goes to West Main with my bike quite often. I can tell you though that East Patagonia has scared me quite a bit of trying to go on that one, because,
We're also
Yeah.
actually getting underway on Route 1 to Flanders. There's 800 linear feet of sidewalk that's going in from Walgreens up to, just go west 800 feet, and it will connect to the existing sidewalk. So,
but is that,
The
Just
the
wanna
point
put-
is to put the pieces together. We've got bits and pieces of sidewalks, which I understand how that happens. But while you're doing that, if you could also have at least a wider breakdown lane and maybe something that has a chevron marking on it for bicyclists or some, as I say, some kind of painted thing that reminds us, the motorists, that the state law is that you're not supposed to get within 3 feet of a bicyclist. I can guarantee you that people do not know that, or they
Right.
don't care.
yeah. So I guess that was really more of my question on that one, is that can we simply, as a commission, ask for Public Works, or I don't know if you said Public Works or Parks and Rec, to get more information about what the plan can be there? Because like I said, if they're going to be, if they're going to be doing this and tearing up some of these sidewalks, is it possible for us to have that change be made then? Or is it, because I don't want this to be something where they put the shovel in the ground in August and we come forward, it's like, by the way, we would like you to do this in September. And they're like, well, we just, we're already doing it. We don't have a plan for that.
I think basically that's through my office and discussion with Public Works directly, and we just have to say, hey, look, this is the policy we're taking. How can we incorporate these amenities into our plans?
So would this need to be edited to include that, or do we just need to?
No, I think if the commission adopts the policy,
Mhm.
you're just adopting a policy, saying you're going to kind of conduct your business under that policy. As far as the town goes and with the current projects, I'd just be going to our town engineer and saying, hey, is there any chance we can get this thing striped? If you have the road's too narrow, we talk to the COG, figure out, the Kate Rattan, she's a transportation engineer, this is her specialty. That would kind of fall back to her and saying, how can we do what Groton did, right, or do London to that extent? And then again, we had talking with Public Works, and then our police department, they're the traffic control authority in town. So we got to kind of get all those three components all working together on complete streets.
Way back when the police were involved, before our little bike safety group dissolved, the police were informed.
So I think, from the top down, it would be made more like an initiative out of the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
We want to pursue a complete streets and then say, hey, to the departments, as you perform your jobs and functions, make sure you incorporate these elements into your designs.
Yeah, forgive me again for my ignorance. So can we
Yeah, no problem.
simply do that and is a vote to adopt this and recommend it to be taken to the Board of Selectmen, or as a
I would say
policy?
you could adopt it as a policy, but recommend that the Board of Selectmen adopt it as a policy.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I don't want this to just be in our notes that we adopted this policy. I mean, that, unfortunately, I just know, I also am on the Historic Properties Commission, and this was a huge problem for us because we were under the impression that something had been adopted, and then it was told to us, oh, no, that hasn't been adopted, and we had to go back. I think Mr. Keller was the one, I think, who went back through the records and found, oh, no, it was adopted like 10 years ago as a policy, but people we didn't even know.
I can speak to the subdivision regulations themselves. Don't necessarily require bike lanes or anything like that, or painting on the road. Typically, the roads that we see are cul-de-sacs versus through
Yeah,
roads.
that's a lesser issue. I mean, everything's important, but I'm more concerned about where there's speeding traffic. Usually in the cul-de-sacs, most sane people don't drive that fast, but they do on the main roads that were never intended to be driven at 45 and 50 miles an hour, and they
Yeah,
do.
I mean, I live on a Hope Street, and I've seen people flying up there like in 2 minutes after I saw a bunch of kids go by on their bikes. So I would prefer not to have anyone be hit by a car. Yeah.
Kirk, do you want?
Yeah.
Also,
I'm sorry.
like zoning regulations, like
Yes, we
are there
don't.
regulations around this, or do they just deal with the application?
I'm sorry, Kirk wanted to speak. I can speak after Kirk. 'Cause-
You're directing the meeting, right?
Yeah, he's.
Right. So, I agree everything in principle and applaud all the work that you're doing here. As far as adopting a policy, I think that if you have a specific thing you wanted to add to say the POCD, maybe some concrete, like things like adding it specifically here under this section. And then that way, when you go to whomever will be implementing these proposed changes, which they're mostly, like everything I see in here, we've kind of brushed on with the POCD. So there is language in there that would support doing this. But if, as far as adopting a policy, I think if we could say, yeah, it's our policy, but if it's not in the POCD or the subdivision regulations.
There's a reference in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, I understand,
Yeah.
I understand. So, the issue, it sounds like, is an implementation issue. We can't really implement anything. What we can do here is make policy that you can take to these people who can implement it. So if there's something specific you want to see in the policy to make it so that, you can go to somebody who actually has the power to implement it and point to it and say, POCD section, blah, 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 says we should be doing this. So, I mean, we can't actually, we can't actually implement stuff
No,
here ourselves.
yeah,
And
no,
I
I
applaud all this stuff, and we did discuss a lot of this when we came through the POCD.
This is the catch-22 that Nick refers to. The people that are implementing it, and you come to say, this is a policy we'd like to do, and they say, oh, wait a minute, no, we don't have a plan. Well, this is the plan on a larger picture. There's a reference in I think it's section 14 of the POCD, which it had to do with transportation, and I think that's the most relevant. I don't know whether it needs to be anyplace else. That says in language what.
Recommends multimodal forms of transportation, section 14.5, page 111.
Yeah.
So I think.
I don't know what more I can say.
I think what I'm, after the discussion here, what I kind of gleaning is that it's kind of like we're moving towards step 2. So I think we have step 1 in the POCD inherently already. Step 2 is implementation. So it would be saying, okay, you could approach the board of selectmen and say, it's kind of development, section 14.5 says we need to incorporate this. We'd like you to adopt this policy and provide funding. And say, okay, well, how do we do that? Maybe through a committee. Maybe they give it to the police commission because they're the traffic authority. Maybe they give it to public works because they're the road maintenance.
That's probably the best
But I
place to put
think
it.
maybe I could have a conversation with Dan and figure out specifically maybe where the best place for that is, and we can bring it to the board of selectmen. They can have discussion and figure out how as a town we can move forward. Because I think at this level, step 2 is developing a plan and maybe refining the plan that we currently have into a more specific plan. Says this is where we want the markings. This is where we want the sidewalks. So I think the plan we currently have in the POC isn't that comprehensive enough. It says, hey, here's where the existing sidewalks are. This is where we want sidewalks. We talked about the bike lanes. We don't actually, show them. So maybe we can come up with some mapping. I do have an intern doing GIS work. I have him for another 4 or 5 weeks. So I can have him work on a bike plan, maybe contact Park and Rec, maybe they can dig out where Mike left off. And we can have that start the conversation again with Jerry, the new Park and Rec director, and get the ball rolling. So maybe not balls lost. I think it just needs some internal communication.
Okay. I still would like to have this voted on. If
I'll leave it to the commission.
Yeah, I'm still requesting, just because I'd like to have it all in one place as a policy that I can say, this is the policy, because the paragraph in the POCD is pretty short and sweet. I thought I put a little meat on it and take it to Public Works. I know exactly what we planned, Mike and I planned where we wanted at least 1 or 2 bike routes painted. It's all in my brain here, so we could move forward. I'd like to have a policy statement. I know it's just a piece of paper, but it does codify in much more greater detail the why and the what than one paragraph that's in the POCD. That's my request. And the Commission on Natural Resources, I'm chair, we will follow up on this. We'll make it one of our our issues to work on this, to see if we can get some funding.
Thank you. Ann, did you want to speak, or?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. So zoning, when they're doing new applications, then would they be required then to consider sidewalks?
They have, I think they consider sidewalks in their site development already.
They do.
Things like bike lanes, though, I'm not certain that they're really considering them in the,
Pretty much
when
guaranteed.
you think about a commercial site development plan, internal circulation is more car-orientated. They're probably not worried about bikes, maybe some pedestrians, obviously walking into the stores. In the residential developments, such as multifamily, I don't know that, it's
Well, for instance,
not as
north,
an intense use, so I think that they really consider internal circulation needing.
the north, it came up with the North Bride Brook one development where it was requested that they have because they have a playground, and the zoning asked for sidewalks to between the houses and the side and the playground, and the developer basically said, I don't have to do it. And he's not.
There is some limitations as to what we can require. The town cannot
That's affordable
require,
housing, so you can't require it.
we can't require developers to install improvements off-site, so off the property, and so that we used to
This was-
require developers to put sidewalks in, and most developers would typically fight you on it, but there was some case law that kind of transpired several years back and put that kind of to rest, and so now municipalities not require developers to do off-site improvements unless they're, I think, specific to the safety.
It was their playground, it wasn't off-site. But it's affordable, so you can't ask for it. I understand.
Anybody else have any further questions?
So, looking at the way this was written, it reminds me a lot of the previous POCD. And so looking at the current POCD, the 2020, the updated edition here, maybe as a goal, you would adopt the policy as a goal, and then I'm looking at the goals with 18 of them. I'm not really seeing. We've got number 16, provide for the safe, convenient, and efficient movement of people and goods within the town, developing a plan, transportation, traffic, pedestrian movement, ensuring and preservation of character. You could add this language maybe to that, number 16. So obviously to do that though, you will need a public hearing. You have to refer the VOCD, make that change. And that's fine, and it would constitute an update. Well, and restart the clock. That's an easy one. Something to consider.
That's a good place for it, I think, under the goals. It would fit right in there.
I can make those changes and bring that forward to you if you wanted to put that. You can go forward with the public hearing, make a change to the PO, make that change to the POCD. Maybe with that, it would make sense to adopt a plan, and develop a plan. Obviously, that's going to take longer than a quick change by just adding language. Really,
Can we adopt a policy, then later on have a public hearing to make changes to the POCD, or?
sure, you can make as many changes as you want.
Right.
You could adopt a policy, you just have to go through and you can add this policy to the plan of development, but in order to add it to the plan, you have to have a public hearing.
Right.
And go through all those same motions. You can do that multiple times.
Mhm.
As changes as you want. You can commingle them into one, you only have to do it one time, obviously.
Mhm.
At your
That,
discretion.
adding a policy to that, those policy as an appendix to the POCD, I'd vote for that. I request that you do that. if
I'm
you-
suggesting they just add it in as a goal, as
Okay.
part of versus an appendix. It's actually becomes part of.
Well, and the goal too. I just,
The plan.
yeah, when it's really short, just as a statement, as a goal, it can be just breezed over. Oh yeah, everything's safe, safety's good. I think a little bit more language needs to be, that's my opinion.
So I guess I would just ask again there for Mr. Gish, so if we bring this up as a thing, let's say we do want to adopt this as, just as been said, we do want to consider adopting this as a goal, or, and then eventually adding into the POCD as a goal. I mean, are we still looking forward then of like, okay, where's step 2? Are we going to be approaching the public works about this, or is this just, okay, it's going to go in there and that's where it's going to stay until 2030?
I mean, unless someone champions it, yes.
Okay.
I mean, it would have to,
Yeah.
someone has to champion moving things forward.
Okay.
And I think that's, through my office, we're having discussion with Public Works saying,
Okay.
incorporate these features into your design plans.
All right, so, I mean, I don't know if it, forgive me again if on this, I don't know if it's required for us to ask you to do that, or if,
So that's why I'm saying, kind of the top down from the Board of Selectmen, they're going to set
Yeah.
the policy for the town.
Okay.
The Planning Commission, or if I'm just saying, hey, Public Works do this, they're like, why do we
all right.
have to? It's extra cost. So,
And I'm sorry, and I forgive me on this, so is it up to Ms. Heller then to bring this to the thing, or can we just recommend this?
you could, as a commission, recommend the Board of Selectmen consider adopting the
All right, great,
policy for the town.
yeah.
I don't know that it ends up in like the charter or anything like that.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it did, but, all right.
I'm trying to get to page 104 here. Our POCD, roads. Here's our existing sidewalks and trails, and then that's our sidewalk and walkability plan. It doesn't really encompass bikes.
Right.
Let's see.
And it doesn't do probably much of anything for the major parts of the town that people would like to walk on or bike on, or maybe even go down Main Street in a wheelchair without taking their life in their hands.
Here's the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments, their bike and pedestrian plan, and this is what Penny was referring to, and the priority bike is on 156 there.
That's it. It's on paper. Never seen the light of day.
So we could kind of, update that stuff or get more specific with it.
Okay,
Might be step 2.
all right.
In addition to the
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further, or just?
No, I'm just, am I being brushed off here?
No. I just, any other discussion, any other comments from anybody, or?
I mean, I think we went through it pretty well. I mean, I would just like to say, and I'm new on the commission. Please forgive me if I'm doing something in an incorrect way, but I'd love to see us be able to adopt this. And I mean, again, we can only say like, yeah, this is something that we are approving and recommend it toward, and possibly recommend it to the Board of Selectmen. But if we're going to open up the POCD, it sounds like we can't exactly do that right now. We're going to need to do that at a public hearing to be able to do that as well. Yeah, do we need to just, I don't know if there's any other discussion, if we just could make a motion, or?
I guess we can discuss when we make a motion to adopt the policy, and should we add something along referring this to the Board of Selectmen in terms of the motion, or?
You certainly could. You could recommend they consider adopting it
Okay.
for the town.
Any other discussion or any other questions? I can entertain a motion.
Okay. I'd like to make I just forgive me on here procedurally if we need to do this as 2 separate motions or something. But I wanted to make a motion to adopt this, as a policy statement, and then recommend it to the Board of Selectmen to be implemented by the town.
You can say I guess you can say the complete street policy statement.
Yes, sorry, the complete street policy statement.
Thank you. Any further discussion, or?
All right.
Does anybody want to second that, or?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Great.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions?
Aye. I'm going to abstain.
Okay. So we have a 5-0-1 in terms of adopting the motion. By Mr. Van de Pace.
And I would just say, like, this is one that, Ms. Taylor, I really much thank you for bringing this up, because I gotta say, it's something that, it's just very funny that I had no idea that that was gonna be what you had talked about. I shouldn't say no idea, but it was not connected to this, of why I brought it up in the beginning of the meeting. So thank you so much for bringing this today. Yeah, I think it's very important.
Thank you. I really appreciate your feedback and the work that you do, so, thank you. I didn't mean to rush you off there. Keep the meeting going. I think that's it.
I would just ask for, so if we were going to consider this do we need to make a kind of motion to consider this in the future? If we're going to add this as a goal to the POCD, like, do we need to make a motion now for that in the future? Or is that just something that we will have to consider?
If you would direct staff to make the change to the POCD, bring that document forward, and then there's other changes. I would go over it with some others.
Do we want to, like, I don't know if we, like, I don't, forgive me on this. Like, again, I was not part of making the POCD. I just want to know for this one, is it something that it's better for us to wait until we have more things to add into it? Or is it just something of like, yep, we just have to put a note in the paper, and when we're going to do this in, let's say in August, when we have our next one or something, we can just do it then? Or
It's a little bit involved. So
Yeah.
basically, with the POCD, we send it to the Board of Selectmen.
Mhm.
They have 65 days to review, whereas it's typically 35 days that outside agencies would get to review things, such as ourselves, with like zoning referrals on the text amendments. So we get 35 days. I believe the board gets 65 to review the POCD and comment back. So I had to send it to them 65 days prior to the public hearing. So I got to, time-wise, you gotta.
so it's a ways. So if we wanted to do this in August, we'd have to propose it now?
I would make the change, bring it to you in July, and say this is what the new language looks like. If you want a public hearing,
Okay.
it'll probably be September,
Okay.
in order to give ample
Yeah,
time
no,
to
that
review,
makes-
and then, we get their response, if any. and
Thank you.
go forward. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Do we need to make that recommendation officially as a board, or are
You
you?
would just direct me as your staff, that
Okay.
that's what you want to do.
I don't know if I'm able to do that, if I have to ask the.
If there's a consensus, it's easy enough to make the change to the section,
Mhm.
have it ready for next month, and then if you guys are ready to go forward with that, just that, then great. If there's
Awesome.
more we want to add, we can add more, make other
Thank you.
changes. For me, that certainly will will constitute an update, so that will push out the 10-year decennial requirement. We still, just as a reminder, we'll have to update the affordable housing plan in, I think, about 3 years. So we're getting into our second year with that. And it's it's a 5-year document. Just keep that on your radar.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll
So
make-
moved.
oh, sorry, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everybody.
I was under the impression that we were going to get more information about